The deadly July floods led to a new state law meant to protect children at camps, but some camps say that law will force them to shut down.
I've seen it before where legislatures create laws that are ostensibly good, and when it comes down to implementation, they do great damage.
Why some camp leaders say they need to change the law to keep from closing. The Texas Attorney General wants to make it easy for anyone to make a complaint about who uses a public bathroom.
Imagine you have a 12-year-old that's trying to go to the bathroom and get changed, and they see a grown man in front of them.
It's called the Texas Women's Privacy Act, but the plan to enforce it has some people worried about an invasion of privacy.
People desperately want change. They know our system is broken.
Texas Democrats have a lot of choices in the race to decide who challenges Greg Abbott. We'll hear from the top candidates making their case to win your vote.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Dylan McKim, in for Josh Hinkle this week. After the deadly July floods, state lawmakers approved a law requiring youth camps to have fiber internet and a backup internet connection. It's meant to ensure reliable communications during a crisis. But several Texas camps say that requirement is impossible to meet before next summer. Capitol reporter Adam Schwager talked to the executive director of one of the largest camps in Texas, who says a lot of his fellow camp leaders worry the law will force them to close.
Are we going to be closed? Am I going to have over 2,000 upset families and campers this summer because I have no fiber?
Dan Neal is the owner and operator of Camp Double Creek in the greater Austin area. His camp, along with several camps across the state, fear they could be forced to close this summer if a new rule from the Department of State Health Services requiring a fiber connection is finalized for this summer.
I have two campuses, and one or both of those will not have fiber by opening day, is what I'm being told, and this is not my choice.
The new rule stems from the Camper Act passed by the Texas legislature in response to this summer's deadly floods.
Camps don't have fiber optic broadband, a lot of them. A lot of cities don't even have it.
Eddie Walker is the executive director of Mount Lebanon Camp, which has about 12,000 annual campers. He estimates at least 170 camps don't have easy access to fiber broadband through a preliminary survey conducted by Camping Association for Mutual Progress, a camping lobbying firm. Walker says they came to that number through cross-referencing camp addresses with the FCC's map on fiber broadband access.
One camp got a bid of $1.7 million to get fiber access. And the deal is, even if you could get it, getting it before May is just, a lot of times it's 18-month turnaround time.
Ahead of the rulemaking process for DSHS, the author and sponsor of the bill, State Representative Drew Darby and State Senator Charles Perry, sent a letter to Commissioner Jennifer Shuford saying all the safety provisions are required to be in effect for this summer, except the fiber broadband provision. Quote, "This distinction is both important and intentional. We knew that youth camp operators would likely experience difficulty acquiring a fiber optic connection," they wrote. Despite this, DSHS still proposed the rule for immediate effect, with a public comment period ending on Friday. State Representative Brian Harrison, the only vote against the bill initially and one of only 4 votes against the bill on final passage, says the letter is a cop-out.
The buck stops with the elected officials in the Texas legislature. There was no reason for those provisions to be in the bill in the first place.
Harrison, who has more concerns than just the fiber provisions, says this might require a third special session to fix.
We could have stopped this thing, and tell you what, if we can't, the governor of Texas needs to get us back to Austin.
For State of Texas, I'm Adam Schwager.
Camp Mystic, where 27 young campers and counselors died, is moving forward with plans to reopen its Kerr County location next summer. Now, the all-girls Christian camp is installing a new flood siren warning system. Aluminum towers are being placed along Cypress Lake near Camp Mystic to support this system, developed by a Liberty Hill company, River Century. The technology is meant to issue warnings even in the event of power, internet, and cell service outages. Investigator Kelly Wiley reports from Cedar Park, where the company behind the sirens explains the technology.
At a shop in Cedar Park, the team behind River Century's new flood alarm warning system shows how they hope campers along the Guadalupe River will be warned to get to higher ground.
Takes about 8 seconds.
The 8-foot towers are meant to use light and sound to wake up campers and residents during a potentially deadly flooding event. The company has already begun installing the sirens at Camp Mystic's Cypress Lake location, according to camp officials. River Sentry says they're also working with other camps along the Guadalupe River.
The philosophy for ours is the towers that are upstream are going to provide the early warning for the downstream towers. So as soon as water's detected, lights and sirens go off.
The company's founder and CEO, Ian Cunningham, says he started developing the technology after the catastrophic floods that killed more than 100 people, including little children in the Hill Country and throughout Central Texas.
I thought to myself, this has to be solvable. Why are we still tolerating this in Texas? With all the tech and all the imagination and creative ability we have just in this region, why does this keep happening?
Are they going to be getting alarms every time it floods a little bit?
River Sentry is interested in guarding a line, the line between dangerous flooding becoming deadly flooding. That's where we want to intervene, right there and not before that.
Apart from the camps, Kirk County also is looking into outdoor warning sirens after Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a new law requiring them in 30 flood-prone areas, along with the mandate to regularly test them. The county told KXAN the contractors for the county's sirens could be selected before March of next year, with testing starting by June.
How do you feel knowing that the testing of this technology, it will be a life or death moment?
The technology we're using is very resilient. This is a new recipe, but all of the components in this device have already been proven themselves in industries for years. We are just assembling them in a new recipe. Where River Sentry is starting to innovate is in the wireless range, where we're starting to bring, these towers and have them talk to each other.
Kelly Wiley, State of Texas.
We asked River Sentry if regulatory approval is needed for this system. They told us no, because they install private equipment on private property. As for cost, the company says it offered them to camps as a donation.
This looks like the Texas Attorney General encouraging private citizens to go out and act as private potty police.
The Texas Attorney General wants to make it easy for anyone to make a complaint about who uses a public bathroom. But the plan to enforce the bathroom bill has some people worried about an invasion of privacy. There's a full slate of Democrats running for the chance to face Governor Abbott next November. We'll hear from the top candidates, including one who appears to be rising above the field. Earlier this month, the state started implementing the Texas Women's Privacy Act. It requires government-owned facilities to designate bathrooms for use of individuals of one biological sex. The creator of the law said the intent is to keep men out of the women's restroom. This week, the Attorney General's office created a new tool to enforce the law, but that tool may lead to legal ramifications. The Texas Women's Privacy Act has put a lot of attention on bathrooms in government-owned buildings. For women like Brooke Slusser, the new law is an ace. You may remember her. She was a volleyball player at San Jose State University who did not know she was living and playing on the court with a transgender athlete. The revelation led her to fight for this bathroom bill in her home state of Texas.
Imagine you have a 12-year-old that's trying to go to the bathroom and get changed, and they see a grown man in front of them and go running and screaming to their mom. I mean, it's traumatizing.
We are being kicked out of the Capitol.
But the change is facing backlash. Days after the law was enacted, a group of protesters tried using the restroom in the state Capitol building. Rai Vasquez, a transgender woman who captured this video, said DPS troopers singled her out when she tried to use the women's restroom. She ended up in handcuffs.
We're seeing it all across Texas, where people are just being blatantly discriminated, profiled, and it is something that is a choice that is now going to have to weigh on me every time I make it.
There is a lot of confusion about how this law will be enforced. This week, the Attorney General's office put a tip line on its website. It allows individuals to report a state-funded institution for possible violations. The form itself asks for evidence of these violations, including photos.
This looks like the Texas Attorney General encouraging private citizens to go out and act as private potty police.
It's important to note, the tip line doesn't explicitly ask for photos of individuals, but civil rights attorney Austin Kaplan said this may encourage illegal behavior. He said there are 3 areas of the Texas Penal Code that outlaw taking pictures of someone in a bathroom.
That's going to potentially lead to criminal liability for people that do that.
Vasquez said she's not allowed on the Capitol grounds for a year, or else she'll be charged with criminal trespass. As the state enters new legal ground, Vasquez said she doesn't know where she belongs.
I have no doubt that I will face adversity when it comes to whatever bathroom I choose.
Under the new law, only state agencies and political subdivisions face a financial penalty for not complying with the law.
People desperately want change. They know our system is broken.
Texas Democrats have a lot of choices in the race to decide who challenges Greg Abbott. We'll hear from the top candidates making their case to win your vote. A presidential order aims to give the U.S. an advantage in artificial intelligence, but that plan could create a conflict with a new state law set to take effect in just days. In March, Texas Democrats will choose a candidate to face Governor Greg Abbott in next year's election, but one already appears to be rising above the field. New polling shows State Representative Gina Hinojosa with an impressive lead over the other Democrats in the race. The poll comes from the Barbara Jordan Public Policy Research and Survey Center at Texas Southern University. They polled 1,600 likely Democratic primary voters. The results show 41% say they intend to vote for Hinojosa. Houston businessman Andrew White is the next closest candidate at just 6%, followed by former Congressman Chris Bell at 5%. However, 42% of likely Democratic primary voters say they're not sure how they'll vote just yet. Despite Hinojosa's lead, nearly half of the people polled said they don't know enough about her to have an opinion. Capitol correspondent Adam Schwager sat down with the representative to learn more about her priorities in this race.
Just to start off, for those of our audience who might not know who you are, who is Gina Hinojosa and why should Texans elect her to be the next governor of Texas?
Well, I'm a mom. I ran for office originally because my son's school was threatened for closure, so I ran for the school board and won. And on the school board, I realized that the reason why my son's school and so many others were threatened for closure is because the state takes our money and doesn't put it back into our neighborhood public schools. So I ran for the House, and I've been representing Central Austin for almost 10 years now. This is my 5th term, and now I'm running for governor because I realized that the reason why there's not money for our schools despite sky-high property taxes is because so much of our money is going to pay really what is a system of grift that I refer to as the Greg Abbott corruption tax.
So speaking of which, what would be some of those day one policies that you would implement should you be elected as governor?
I'm glad you asked. So let's focus on education. That's an issue I know well and I've been working on over the past few years in the Texas House. So this session I introduced a bill, and we had a press conference actually. And we had a press conference where MAGA moms joined me in this press conference. And what it did was it wiped the slate clean of the vendor contracts that have gotten out of control when it comes to our public schools. The vendor contracts of the state are where a lot of our dollars are going. So it wipes the slate clean of the vendor contracts and then builds a budget that speaks to the priorities that we all know we need for our kids, like a well-paid teacher. We all know that the best thing we can do for a child's education is to put a great teacher in the classroom, but our teachers make almost $10,000 below the national average. So let's pay teachers their worth. And so we have among the highest paid teachers in the country, smaller class sizes, special education funding, and school safety. These are priorities that parents know we need in our neighborhood public schools. They're not rocket science, right? We all recognize these are good things. They don't happen because too much of our money is going to grift.
Well, usually this is the part where I'd ask how you plan to stand apart from the primary field, but there was polling that came out on Thursday morning that showed that you have a fairly commanding lead, 41% of likely Democratic primary voters throwing their weight behind you compared to your next closest opponent at 6%. What do you attribute that large lead to, and how do you keep that momentum going through that March 3rd primary?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't take anything for granted, but I am really, it is a feeling of satisfaction to know that my work over almost a decade has been appreciated by Democrats across this state. I have fought hard for our public schools. I have fought hard for working Texans. And what the polling shows is that people have noticed and people appreciate it. And I'm just so grateful for that.
We told you how polling shows Hinojosa with a large lead in the Democratic race. We wanted to find out a little more about some of the others on the ballot. Here's what 3 of them told us about why they're running.
I'm running for governor of Texas as an independent Democrat, which is a Democrat who will unite progressives and moderates together and invite independents into our party, because we have to make the big tent a little bigger if we're going to win in November. And Democrats haven't won in the last 30 years. So my background, I've been a businessman for the past 30 years, and I've started 4 different businesses and sold those businesses to focus on this campaign. 2 businesses were in residential services. 1 business was a clean tech business that's recycled millions of pounds of waste at industrial plants. And another business was a border security business, which is kind of unique. You know, Greg Abbott likes to talk about border security. Well, I can do that too. And so I have a very broad background in business, and it's time to do something different. My dad used to say, if you want to have a different result, you got to do something different. And Democrats haven't won in 30 years. Like I said, Greg Abbott is undefeated running against politicians. I'm different. I'm a businessman, and I'm ready to do the job.
Well, I'm an everyday, ordinary Texan who, just like most Texans, do extraordinary things as far as we are the economy. We built the state, and we should become the priority of the state. And I think we've been left behind by a leadership in Austin that has catered to their big donors and big corporations. I have been a farmer. I've worked in warehouses and stocked shelves. I've been a career firefighter, and most importantly, I've been a husband and a father and a grandfather. And I'm concerned about the legacy that I'm leaving them. I've worked my whole life to build that and leave it to them, and I'm worried about that, and that's why I'm running for governor.
We're at a critical time here in the state of Texas, and it worries me because the other main motivating force for me was that I really do believe that Greg Abbott and others have basically declared war on public school education. And public schools have been the keys to so many futures for Texans, and we have to get away from that mindset and start doing what we need to do to make sure that when kids graduate high school, they're one of 2 things, either ready to go to college or ready to go to work. And I assure you that's my #1 goal.
There is much more to see from the Democrats running for governor. We've posted our complete interviews on our website. Just look for the links in this week's State of Texas story.
This is the single most important economic question in the country and in the world. Who wins the race for AI?
President Trump issues an executive order aimed at giving the U.S. the advantage when it comes to AI. But the federal plan is raising questions about the impact on a new state law set to take effect. Earlier this month, President Trump signed a new executive order blocking states from regulating artificial intelligence. The move made to ensure the U.S. stays ahead of China in the race for AI. The order comes just a few days before a new Texas law that regulates AI is set to take effect. Senior science reporter Eric Henriksen explores how the president's order will impact us here at home.
A new move to loosen the reins on AI.
There's only going to be one winner here, and that's probably going to be the U.S. or China.
In the new executive order, President Trump directed the Attorney General to challenge state laws restricting AI.
We have the big investment coming, but if they had to get 50 different approvals from 50 different states, you can forget it because it's not possible to do.
One of those states, Texas. On January 1st, the Texas Responsible Artificial Intelligence Governance Act takes effect. That law prevents the state from using AI to identify people using biometric data without consent, while also restricting other uses.
It refers to the regulation of government use of AI, something that is explicitly included in the executive order as being the proper domain of states.
Kevin Frazier leads the AI Innovation and Law program at UT. He says the president's order is not aimed at Texas laws, but laws passed in states like California that are more broad.
By virtue of doing that, that subjects you and me and 300 million other Americans to whatever laws Californians have signed off on.
I think one of the bigger issues that they're grappling here with Texas is, what does AI infrastructure mean for on-the-ground infrastructure?
Jeremy Mazur with Texas 2036 says the increased resource demand of Texas data centers, which power AI, are the greater concern for local regulators.
I mean, what are going to be the impacts to our grid and to our water resources?
Eric Hendrickson, State of Texas.
We want to give you some perspective about the power demand AI could put on the Texas electric grid in the near future. ERCOT, that's the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, says they've seen a spike in what they call large load requests. That's when a high-demand energy user like an AI data center asks to connect to the grid. Earlier this month, ERCOT reported that large load requests have nearly quadrupled in about a year's time to around 220 plus gigawatts. To put that into perspective, that's roughly 200 nuclear power plants worth of demand. About 3/4 of that demand is coming from data centers. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Dylan McKim. We'll be back here next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.